All right, we are back for another Friday financial wrap-up with Mr. Michael Zuber. How are you, Michael?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for doing this. It's always fun. It's always a nice way to wrap up the week.
I agree. I was looking forward to this one. This is for October 18th, 2024. Pretty much recorded in real time. Let's get right into the show. The election, is it 2 weeks away?
Yeah, roughly.
What are you seeing? What's your thoughts this week?
Well, I guess really the point here is a lot of places, including where I'm registered now, Nevada, early voting, mail-in voting has started. I have already voted, right? So I got my little sticker for voting. So I would just encourage everybody to get out there and vote. It is a presidential election. Also, there's obviously lots of kind of local elections going on. It's just our time. Go vote. I always used to have a saying that if you vote, you can bitch, and if you don't vote, you can't complain. So go vote, and let's see where the chips fall in November 5th, I think.
Let me ask you a question. And I like what you said. Hey, if you don't vote, you don't have the ability to complain about what's going on with the government and all of that. Let me ask you this question though. Does this election feel a little bit more contained and not as wild as it's been in the past?
Going into this election, you could always have an October surprise, something out of left field could happen. But I got to be honest, it doesn't feel as wild and crazy as I thought it would be. Right. And maybe that's just because we're numb to the craziness, maybe. But yeah, thinking back 6 weeks ago when I called the buyer's market because of the election, I got to admit that it really hasn't been that crazy, I don't think.
Yeah.
And that's probably a really sad statement because it's still been nuts, I'm sure, but we're probably numb to all the craziness.
I think so, though. It definitely feels different than past, and I don't feel as much mudslinging. And I think both parties are just trying to really rest on their own actual points versus, the wild circus that we've had at least the last two cycles. So we'll keep an eye on it. We'll talk about it more as we get closer. Let's keep going. Let's talk about
just one more thing. One more thing. The other thing that I think about this election, and probably every election today going forward, like every election, it's not going to be done by mainstream media. What we have seen with this election cycle is there's a lot of independent, I'll call them podcasters, journalists that are really leading the way, right? Yeah. You really haven't seen ABC, CNN, all those. They've had onesie, twosie discussions, but a lot of the stuff that at least I'm listening to are on podcasts, right? Bigger podcasts. And I just think it's interesting. I think that's going to be something going forward. So, building a brand, having a platform, I think it's the way to go. So I think independent journalists and podcasts will be the key, for elections going forward.
I agree. It's good to see a lot of different voices, new voices, different ideas, different opinions. So completely agree. Let's talk about Fed talk. What happened this week?
Yeah, we got a lot of Fed presidents speaking this week. And really, it's kind of, you can start to see two camps forming. Camp number one is, hey, we gave you the 50, the numbers are generally good. We may not do a November. We may not do anything the rest of the year. And then there's the other camp that's saying, hey, we're still really far away from neutral. We don't want to be restrictive. You got a quarter cut coming. So I think it's November 6th, the day after the election, is going to be a very interesting Fed meeting because the last one, we already had one person, Michelle Bowman, dissent. I think the next one is going to be going to have some fireworks, and I don't expect it to be unanimous.
Very interesting. Yeah, very interesting time, and very, very interesting what's going on in the world and in the country. We'll keep talking. We'll keep going. Talk about retail sales. What did you see this week, and what was your take on it?
Yeah, retail sales was interesting. So going in, I thought this would be a retail sales that was weaker than expected and quite possibly negative, right? We're hearing, and I've been reading about the consumer really being broke. We've talked about the consumer delaying big purchases like houses and cars, furniture, appliances, stuff like that. But it looks like, again, if you look at the numbers, they were better than expected. X autos was really better than expected, 0.5 on an expectation of 0.1, basically spending at clothing and restaurants. So that was seasonally adjusted. However, if you step back and look at non-seasonally adjusted, we were actually flat year on year and negative month on month. We were negative something like 7 or 8%. So again, I don't think the numbers being reported are as strong as they look. I think that's a trend that we've seen, is a lot of the numbers coming out look artificially good, but when you just scratch the surface, not even a millimeter, the numbers start looking weaker and weaker. So, again, retail sales seasonally adjusted, better than expected. Get into the data, not so good. So, again, I think the Fed's models are just broken, right? All of these seasonally adjusted stuff going on, I think it's broken. I also think there was perhaps some front running of the port strike and some hurricane stuff that may have gotten into the mix. But yeah, I think it's just another number saying the economy is strong. And I'm like, I don't think so. I don't think it's that strong.
Very interesting times. Very interesting times. Well, let's talk about rates. I think this is probably, not a lot of people are talking about it. We've been talking about it forever. What was your thought on rates this week? And we're even going to look at a chart, but go ahead. And what's your thoughts on rates this week?
Yeah. So the average person out there, I would suggest following the 10-year note. I just checked this morning. It's still over 4%. I think it was 4.07. That 4% is a psychological number. In order for really to get mortgage rates to go down, you need the 10-year to go under 4%. So today, I think it's sitting at like 6.6 or something of that nature. And it's just where we are. I thankfully, I was one of the first people to talk about, hey, all you guys calling 5% rates next year, I think you're wrong. Yep. And I did that when rates were 6.1. So I was really ahead of the game. And now I look like a genius when rates are 6.6. I just don't think we're going to get rates much below 6% all year, even if the Fed cuts 150 basis points. I think the yield curve steepens. And I think rates are going to be higher than most people think next year.
And this is interesting. And the reason why I wanted to show this chart was, if we take a look at, the Fed basically cut the rate somewhere in here when rates were actually coming down. And I think a lot of, the general public doesn't understand that 30-year mortgages are not tied to the Fed rate cut. They dropped 50 basis points, and we basically have gone
straight up.
I don't know, 50, 60 basis points, depending on how you look at it.
Correct.
Straight up. What can you explain that and break that down? How that works, or the Fed rate versus what happens in the 30-year?
Yeah. People like to act like the Fed controls mortgages. They simply don't. Right. This Fed rate that they're talking about, it's an overnight lending rate. It's the ultimate short term. And it does influence, right? But it typically influences the short end, right? Maybe out to 2 years. After that, what the mortgage is fixed on the 10-year, right? And commercial loans are on the 5-year, because again, they're shorter. So again, there's just a lot of, I don't know, I don't want to say naive, but misunderstanding that, hey, the Fed cut rates, mortgages must go down. That's not how it works. As you could see on that chart, mortgages went down ahead of the Fed rate cut, right? The mortgage market is a leading indicator. So it front ran the rate cuts and then didn't like what the Fed was saying and, ripped higher after that.
Very interesting. And so real quick, just for predictions, because I see now a lot of people talking about 2025. We're going to also lean toward that theme. You've said it already. I think I know the number, but just where do you think the rate range is going into the 2025? What do you see 5%?
I do not see anything lower than 5.8. Right. I've said it before. I'll stick with it, even though rates are higher today. I thought they'd be 5.8 to 6.2. So now I guess I have to say, 5.8 to 6.5, something like that.
Yeah. And you've said that, and I knew the number, but it's like, we're not going to see 4.5, 4.99.
We may not even see 5.8. Yeah. We may not see 5.8 until like the third quarter of next year. Right. I'm calling 5.8 is not the average. I'm saying that'll be the low mark of the year. And that could happen late in 2025. I don't think it happens in January, for example.
I think too, we'll do a separate show because I know the Mortgage Bankers Association will release something. National Association of Realtors, they'll all kind of say, this is what we believe rates are going to be next year. When that drops, I think you and I, let's do a show all around just our thoughts on rates for 25.
Perfect.
Let's keep going. So now we've talked about this, and it may not resonate for some people, but I wanted to really hit home today. We've talked about a soft landing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now you threw something this morning in the show notes, a no landing. What is a no landing? What is a soft landing? What does it mean? And what would a no landing look like?
So a soft landing would be kind of the economy coming in, but not hitting recession, right? So low growth, but not going negative, right? So you have a hard landing, recession. Soft landing is kind of this, the Fed threads the needle. They can somehow balance the contraction of rates and all of those things in the economy. And we just kind of like land on a cloud, if you will. A no landing is something that, again, I'm not calling a no landing, but given all the economic numbers, I think we should have a discussion about it. A no landing is we don't even have a soft landing. We just keep running at 3% growth for, the rest of the year, right? I think GDP now, I think I checked it earlier, is up at like 3.7% or something. So again, a no landing is we don't even have a soft landing. Economy doesn't take a breath. And the reason this is an important conversation is I don't think people understand a no landing will actually cause a lot of pain. Now, what do I mean by that? So I have a list of things that I think happens if we have a no landing. Number one, Ty, rates are higher than people expect, right? The Fed can't be cutting in a world where, GDP is growing at 3.5%, 4%. And inflation is, going back to 3%. The Fed can't cut. In fact, the Fed may have to raise if that's where we are. So the first point to understand in a no landing scenario, the reason it's going to be a problem is rates stay higher, even higher than I expect. If we have a no landing, we may not get in below 6.2, right? So I'm in the camp of a rolling recession, soft landing-ish. But if we have a no landing and I'm wrong and we just keep racing, we all got to raise our cost of capital. And the reason I think that's going to cause a lot of pain is there's a lot of debt in the environment. And a lot of that debt is on, it turns over, right? It's revolving. And I think there's a lot of individuals and a lot of small businesses that are living on fumes. And if the environment keeps going forward, some of those folks, the only out they're going to have is bankruptcy. Right. So I think there's going to be a lot more personal bankruptcies. I think there'll be a lot of companies that shut down because they can't roll their paper over, or if they do roll it over, they can't afford it. And the other thing that I think happens with higher rates is if you get laid off, I think the downside of this kind of no landing scenario is people that get laid off are going to be on unemployment longer because it's going to be hard for people to find a job. Right. If you're operating in an environment where the cost of capital is really strangling you, you're not going to be in a rush to hire people. And so I think it's going to be painful. The other thing is, if we have higher rates, we're going to see a dramatic drop again in transactions, right? I was hoping to get 4.2 million existing home sales next year. If we don't go below 6.25, we might get 3.9, right? 4 million, right? We might lose 200,000 sales, and we'll have less mortgages, and we'll have less refis. We'll have less car sales. Well, one thing in the retail sales number earlier is appliances and furniture down. Why? Because it takes debt, right? A lot of people buy that stuff on debt. So again, it'll just, if the cost of capital is higher, it's going to hurt a lot of companies, a lot of folks. It's going to slow transactions, and I think it's going to feel like the early 80s. And I don't say that with a smile, right? The early 80s were very painful, right? It was the time when my old man got laid off. I think he got laid off twice. I think he was unemployed like 16 months out of 2 years. It was a miserable time.
Yeah.
And a no landing scenario, right? And it's really weird. I mean, there was a saying that I heard, I think Warren Buffett or someone said it back in the day, that I always kind of threw out there like, it's a cute saying, but I think it's actually, if we have a no landing, it's going to be real. And that saying is, it's a recession when your neighbor's laid off. Mm-hmm. It's a depression when you're laid off. I mean, that's just what I see. If we go into a no landing, I don't know, pick a number, 95, 94, 93% of us will be employed and be doing okay. But the folks that unfortunately get tapped on the shoulder, they're going to be unemployed for much longer durations. And anybody who's on a transaction-based payment plan, right, like agents and brokers and mortgages and mortgage, that it's going to be slower. So I think we need to buckle up, right? If I was planning a business, it's certainly not my base case, but I think it's something we need to consider. I mean, you and I talked about Ryan Pineda's 2025 prediction last week or the week before. And, I think I'm going to call him and say, dude, you got to go back and replan, right? Because he was thinking rates would be in the 5s. And I'm like, dude, you got to at least anticipate what happens if rates are in the 6s. Because I think the business model is different, right? If you're wrong on interest rates by a whole 100 basis points, that could hurt you, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too that, I mean, for anybody in our business, realtors, loan officers, wholesalers, fix flip, you've got a plan. You got to definitely have a plan for, okay, if everything stays the same, which is kind of slow, a little sluggish, a little weird, you've got a plan for that. If things even go backwards and get a little tougher or tighter, you've got to have a plan for that also. And if things improve, well, guess what? You're going to be ahead of the curve. Just keep your foot on the gas.
Yeah.
Keep the actions going. So
I really, because again, this came to me this week when I keep seeing these economic numbers just a little bit better than expected. Again, I'm not calling a no landing. I just, for the first time, think it's possible. And if you don't understand that higher rates for 2025 are dramatically going to weigh on companies and individuals. I mean, seriously, we're going to have more personal bankruptcies. We're going to have more companies go out of business. We're going to have more consolidation. And again, part of the environment, you got to clean up the bad deals, right? Part of the reality of the business cycle is if you get over leveraged or you do something bad, you're supposed to lose. And there might be a lot of pain recognized next year.
Very interesting times. Very interesting times. Let's shift gears. Now, you had a guest. You and I are both, obviously, we were born in the 70s. Mm-hmm. You and I always have this really like nostalgic, but also students of history, what real estate did in the 70s and 80s, how we got here to where we're at today in 2024, 2025. Talk about your special guest, Bill. Who is he? What did he do? Talk about the interview.
So one of the things I love about being out there in the public and, creating a school community is I'm starting to attract other go-givers. And Bill is just one of those go-givers. He reached out to me and said, I want to share my story. I want other people to appreciate, because Bill, if you don't know who he is, he's 80 years old. He's 80 years old today now. His first real estate transaction was in 1973. He never made a lot of money, worked for the government, lived below his means. And he only did 5 moves in 51 years. That's all he did, right? I always talk about get to 4. He made 5 moves. So he did 1 more. He had a gap of a decade between, number 2 and number 3, I think. And the reason all this is important is during that interview, Bill said, and I want people to feel this, because of real estate, Bill can afford his rent. He couldn't afford his rent on his pension and Social Security. He's taken the time to pay off his property, so there's no debt burden. And he just wanted people to know that what we talk about at 1 rental at a time, slow and steady, get to 4, hold for 30 years, it really works. And he's a living, breathing example. And he's in school. I've asked people to reach out to him, but it's just so nice that somebody watches us, says, "Hey, I resonate." And he's 80 years old. He still invests and goes to meet. He's going to come to Vegas, right? We're going to get some pictures with Bill. It was so heartwarming to hear him put it out there, because he doesn't have to do this. In fact, he was so nervous about getting on Zoom, right? He's 80 years old. He's not tech savvy, right? But we made it happen. And I'm just so thankful for Bill coming on and sharing it. So it was great to hear, somebody who's been through it. Just guys, live below your means. Only did 5 deals and 5 moves, and he's living the great life because of real estate. It was pretty awesome.
So good. So good. I love it. I love it. Shout out to Bill. I love it. Let's finish. Let's talk about opportunity. Tell people about, now this I think is one of the greatest values out there. Tell people about the school community and what it is and what we're doing there.
Yeah, so the school community is just called One Rental at a Time. You can look it up on school, but it is likely going to become the thing that I am most known for. We're almost up to 300 members. We have 3 different accountability groups: one on Wednesday, one on Sunday, one on Monday morning. My grand vision is eventually we have accountability groups 7 days a week. Run by others. I don't run these, right? So that would be really cool. But again, shout out Frank, Jared, and Max for running those 3. But really, it's a platform to get you around other people going in the right direction. It's become painfully obvious to me that you've got to be in the right rooms and around the right people. I put out the school community at a ridiculously low price of $20 because $20 is just enough to keep away the haters, and it's low enough that everybody can follow it. In fact, it's wild to think about this. My school community costs 67 cents a day. 67 cents a day. 2 quarters, a dime, a nickel, and 2 pennies. That's all it costs. It's just wild. But again, the community, great, worth 67 cents all by itself. The other thing I've done is I got some coaching from the #1 real estate investing school. Shout out Andrea. She came on the channel and gave me some props. I actually took your masterclass in creative financing and put it out there at level 2. So it doesn't unlock unless you're level 2, right? We gamify with school, and my boot camp is level 3, because one of the things that I'm trying to do is get the community to interact, right? Don't just join, be a fly on the wall, and take. I want people interacting and give and respond and leave comments and thumbs up. So we're starting to gamify access, so that will encourage people. And again, the boot camp's $1,000. You've got to get to level 3. Your creative financing is several $100s. You got to get to level 2. We're almost at 300. We're adding almost a person a day, and I think it's really going to take off eventually. I think eventually it'll be 1,000 folks. But yeah, it's just crazy to watch this thing grow. That was just an idea, right? You and I got together. I don't know, what was that? 4 months ago. We were just playing with it, and I just jumped in. I said, let's go try this thing.
I love it. And there's so much value there. I just want to emphasize, like my creative finance course and the stuff that I'm doing, it's usually the initial buy-in's $500, $1,000, $1,500 to buy into a package of the group coaching and things I do. You have access to it for $20, but you have to earn the right
Correct
participation through level 2, level 3 to get to these higher courses. But there's thousands of dollars of value there, Michael. Oh, yeah. I absolutely love it.
Yeah. And one more thing about the school. Again, what I always envisioned with school was you're going to basically have access to my Rolodex, right? Because again, every week we have a different millionaire that you can tune in and ask questions, right? You're actually part of the conversation. And like on Monday at 8 a.m., I'm going live, right? I try to go live by myself once a month. So you can just ask me any questions. A lot of people want access to me, and, $20 a month, you get me once a month. You can ask me any and everything. And, I go live with the Lumberjack and you and all these other folks. So it's, there's so much there for 67 cents a day. It's almost comical.
Ridiculous. I love it. Folks, get involved with school. If you like the content here, get involved. The next level, $20 a month, pennies, get involved in school. Let's talk about Vegas, man. I am so excited for February and the One Rental at a Time event. Tell them about it. How can they find tickets? This will sell out, folks. Don't sleep on it. Tell them about Vegas.
Yeah, Vegas, February 15th, 16th is going to be amazing. It's over 18 hours of just presentations from the stage, no selling. I do events different. Half the time is direct Q&A from the audience, right? We're not going to sit. It's not death by PowerPoint. In fact, many of the speakers won't even have PowerPoint, right? Because they're going to have one topic to talk about. And then it's Q&A from the audience, right? That really worked well last year, and we'll do that again. I got lots of surprises coming. We have a surprise speaker on Saturday and a surprise speaker on Sunday, both after lunch, because I have to give you a reason to come back after lunch. So 2 surprise speakers. We're looking to get the keynote speaker locked down. I got to follow up in December to see if we can lock them down. I'm going to feed everybody this year, right? I didn't do that last year, which was a mistake. We're going to do badges, and you want to be there. You want to be in that room. There's just something about once a year, coming out, being in real life, asking questions. And again, a lot of people in the community, they want to come meet me, but they also want to meet the millionaires, right? Most of my millionaires will be there. And I don't pay anybody, right? They come on their dime. So again, it's so fun. We've sold almost 100 tickets. It will sell out. At least I believe it will sell out. And if it doesn't matter. We're going no matter what.
Oh, it'll sell out. It'll definitely sell out.
Yeah. So again, buy your tickets. The thing you should be doing if you want to save money is you should buy your tickets now, because airfare and hotels only get more expensive in Vegas the closer you get to the date. If you want a deal, right, you need to book it now. We're almost 100 days out. Right. We're almost 100 days out. So it's time to buy your tickets. It's time to get there. And I look forward to seeing you. So it's going to be fun.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun time, folks. You can go to Eventbrite. You can find it. Just search One Rental at a Time, Eventbrite. It pops right up. Tickets are on sale. This will sell out. Michael is just for the audience, I want you to know, Michael, typically he's humble and he's modest. and I want to say that he always over delivers for a $400, $500, $600, $700 event ticket. How much are the tickets? One more time.
General admission's only $299 and VIP is $699.
Okay, so $699, $299. Buy the VIP if it's available. It's already 50-60% sold out.
Yep.
Buy the VIP. Get yourself in the room. It's the best networking event, and unlike to me and for the audience, I want you to know this is like an anti-seminar. This isn't about the big shot on stage and everybody's there, and then the person's on stage and then they quickly run out, or they don't want to talk to people, or they hide in the back in the green room and they act like a big shot. That isn't what happens here. Everybody that you see that are panelists, hosts, experts, the millionaire panels, all the experts, they're all in the room, and we're all just socializing, sharing ideas, networking. And literally, like, you're going to have some of the best conversations over a 2-day period. And then on top of it, if you're by VIP, what's great is that we have a special dining room where we're in there and everybody's spread out. And so you can literally go from table to table and talk to the lumberjack, talk to Millennial Mike. I'm there. I'm always like, what's up, Millennial Mike? What's going on, lumberjack? What's going on? You get to talk to Matt, the mortgage guy. Everybody is in that room. And you get to really interact with people. So Michael's underselling it. I'm going to tell you, folks, get involved, buy your tickets now. This will sell out. Michael's plans to sell it out by, let's call it November, December. And the reason why is so he doesn't have to worry about ticket sales. Then he can just plan the rest of the event and not have to worry about it. Michael, did I miss anything?
No, again, absolutely right. My hope is this sells out right before Christmas, maybe right New Year's. I would love the last 6 weeks just to be about the event, because again, I got lots of moving pieces to get that all done. So there would be nothing better than to be all sold out before their year turns over. That would be wonderful.
I love it. I love it. One last thing, Michael. When are you running when is your marathon?
2 weeks from tomorrow.
2 weeks from tomorrow in Vegas, right?
In Vegas. Yep.
I love it. I love it. Folks, if you like the show, if you like the content, please subscribe, like, comment, share, follow. Michael, any parting words?
I just appreciate you, Ty. You're amazing. Thank you for being my friend. Thank you for being my mentor. Thank you for being a sounding board. You mean the world to me. So thank you.
Likewise, brother. I appreciate you so much. I've learned so much hanging around with you, and I love what we're doing and doing this show. It means a lot to me as well. Thank you, brother. Have a great weekend.
You too. Take care.